Hi, this is Aquarian Anarchy, and this week, as you can see, we've got Chad sitting over to my side, and unfortunately, Nico is going to be a little bit late this evening, but he will make it a little bit later into the broadcast. For this week, we have a family member of mine on who also happens to be, he's my brother-in-law, and he also happens to be a Seventh-Day Adventist minister. And Aaron and I met through my wife because his wife and my wife are sisters, but we have also sparked a friendship. And we have one of the things that's happened over the past few years that we've known each other is that I think both of us have a mutual respect for each other. And that's mainly rooted in that though Aaron is a minister, and I don't consider myself a Christian. I mean, as I've said before, I consider myself a deist, but I respect Aaron's beliefs, and I also think that he respects my voluntaryism. We've talked at length and found that the ethics and morals that we've kind of found those two beliefs on are almost identical. They're at least very similar. And I think that that's because if you traced it back, Jesus is one of us. So, tipping tables over at the bankers and doing all that kind of stuff. So he's one of our kind. And Aaron has had an interesting life and had interesting things happen. He was, I want to tease this and he can get into it later, but as a child, and because this is something I definitely want to talk to him about, as a child, he was in Rwanda during the genocide. His parents were missionaries and
Wow.
they were there when that happened. So he has some interesting stories. So Aaron, if you would just kind of, I guess, go off of that and tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah, welcome aboard, man.
Yeah, hey, appreciate it. And, as Mark was saying, it's a privilege. We have a couple of ladies in our life that kind of joined our paths, and we're both thankful for that. Mm-hmm. And we do kind of come from different perspectives, but really have developed a friendship, and I really appreciate the chance to kind of just share and talk this evening. And, as he mentioned, my life has taken some interesting journeys and twists and turns. I was raised in what I would say is, as far as a perspective, pretty traditional Christian home. Mom, dad, and I'm older brother. I have a younger sister, 17 months younger, and kind of grew up in that perspective. But my own personal journey has taken me all over the place, really. And so I've found purpose and meaning in giving my life to Christ. And part of that was in this journey, as Mark was mentioning, of being in Rwanda as a 12, 13, 14-year-old kid and making a lot of friendships over there. And then kind of, between one day and the next from a teenage perspective, life's all of a sudden very different. And, war and stuff you've seen in the movies and heard about in the movies is happening right outside your window, 10 feet away. And, being then evacuated out of the country and, really just kind of processing through that whole experience, hearing mom and dad talk about it, other adults. But it was really a big, influential moment in my life to both live overseas and then to experience, that tragedy in the context of people that you knew, friends that you knew, people that you hung out with every day, and then wondering what happened to them. And, not hearing for years. In fact, actually, it's a pretty cool story. It would be about a year and a half ago now, I actually had a FaceTime call with somebody in Africa that I thought died in the war.
Oh, wow.
And, so having those moments where all of a sudden this guy that you hung out with literally every day for a couple of years, all of a sudden it's like, wow, he's alive. And wow, we're both old, so.
How old were you when that happened? It was just a few years ago?
So it was basically a year and a half ago that I had that FaceTime call. So for, the 20 plus years, 20 years, I think it's been just over, my math's off a little bit, over 20 years. So it's been, kind of like just thinking he was dead. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, wow, brought a lot of memories back, a lot of happy times. And
how'd y'all get back in contact with each other?
So, it's kind of interesting. My mom and dad really, for their process of healing, they needed some closure on that experience. And, when I was a freshman in high school, they actually went back. And so then they did again in 2018 and randomly met one of the guys that was my buddies, one of my buddies that I hung out with a lot. And they heard from them that my other friend, Murakazi was his name, was alive. And so they were kind of that connection piece when they were back in the country.
Cool.
So.
Yeah, Aaron has a really interesting family. I really get along with his mom and dad too. And they have interesting stories as well to say. And, one of the things that I think that makes particularly Seventh-day Adventists, and if I were going to be a Christian, and I have doctrinal issues, and I just can't get there with belief and those kinds of things. But if that ever happened, if I ever was to become a Christian, it certainly would be in the Seventh-day Adventist. And the the reason isn't necessarily because of particular beliefs or a feeling that they're better. It's because they put what they believe into action. I've seen it. I've watched Aaron particularly and his wife Sarah, my sister-in-law, and frankly, just about everybody in my wife's family, because most of her family are Seventh-day Adventists, I've watched them live up to, in my opinion, the teachings of Jesus. They have gone out and they have given to the poor. They help people every year with whether you need dentistry work or medical work, and they give it to people for free. Aaron was impacted, and I'd kind of like you to talk about this, Aaron, a little bit, was impacted by COVID because they had a big to-do that was going to go on for the Seventh-day Adventists here in Indiana, in Indianapolis, and Aaron was actually in charge of, and you can tell the numbers, I don't remember, but it was an ungodly, just huge, I guess very godly, huge amount of help that they were about to provide. And because of COVID, it got shut down. So would you tell Aaron a little bit about your ministry and what you do to help the poor actively?
Yeah, no, absolutely. If you don't mind, hopefully this doesn't sound like a detour, but, I just want to tie back into that experience in Africa because I kind of had checked off the list. I got tuberculosis when I was over there. And so I came back kind of, embittered about the whole experience. And so service and the whole idea of kind of living your life for others and all that stuff, I was kind of like done with that. And I went through a period of rebellion. It's kind of interesting. My connection back with the church that really ultimately led to me now being in pastoring had to do with rediscovering that purpose that you find in helping people because they're people, right? In the sense that we're all human beings, and no matter what we see or believe, or there's a value in being able to connect with each other. And really, my needs as a human being are met the best when I'm meeting your needs, when I'm putting you above myself, when I'm trying to focus on what is important to making your life better, or, and so that's really counterintuitive to the way we are programmed as far as society and really our own selfish natures at some level when we talk about morality, because we think if I do everything I want and I get everything that I want and I focus only on me, then that's the road to happiness. And really it's not. And so, when we come to the perspective of church, the whole hope is that we as church members, or even people in general, see that it isn't about what I can get out of the experience. It's about what I can give to the experience. And so, we have a lot of different ways to try and engage people in experiencing that, because there's just an intrinsic reward that comes from doing good for goodness sake, not with a bait and a switch, not with a hook, not with a manipulative factor in that. And I don't mind saying that, yeah, I want to introduce people to Jesus Christ. And yeah, I hope that their life changes for the better because of interactions. But if you need your tooth pulled and you don't want to hear what I have to say, come on in, we're going to pull your tooth, right? And so that's no strings attached stuff, because if your mouth feels better, good, right? Or whatever the
Right.
case may be. So we engage in a lot of different ministries, and for me, foreign mission became a part of that. And I'll type back into what you had initially asked me, but we go over overseas to a number of different places. We've been to India, we've been to Africa, we've been to Ecuador, we've been to Mexico and Dominican Republic. And a lot of times when we go on those trips, we take members of our congregation, students from our school, and we participate in a 10-day trip to build something, usually a school or a church. We host dental clinics over there and medical clinics. We do giveaways of stuff that for kids, school supplies. We take toys with us. And really, those things have become a real, I would just say recharge moment almost for the year. It's so easy to get sucked into materialism and everything when you live in an affluent country. And when you go over somewhere where people have nothing and they're happier than people over here, it's a real, perspective change that we find valuable. And so one of the things that you had asked about, we participate and we try and host them annually. Things have changed a little bit with everything that's going on, is these free dental clinics and health expos. And I was on a team much bigger than myself, so I can't take the credit for being in charge of it. But Lucas Oil Stadium had been rented out to be able to provide medical care and dental care, eye examinations, haircuts, clothes, spiritual counseling, encouragement as far as that goes. And the goal was to try and see between 5,000 and 8,000 people, right, in the span of about 4 days, even performing surgeries down on the floor. The whole thing gets transformed into a huge medical clinic. It's been done before in other cities, but the goal was to try and do it here. And everything was locked in, and everything had to be changed. Sadly enough, we were really excited about being able to try and do that. So kind of took a detour to your original question, but wanted to share some of those pieces. For me, it was a step to get back into service because I kind of had this mindset. I paid my dues. I got a lung disease from it, and I'm done with this whole thing. I kind of had to go back through a change. So,
well, what you said actually kind of it hit me because there was a period, and I haven't talked about this with a whole bunch of people. But there was a stretch where, I mean, I've had some low points in my life, but they haven't been. It's kind of like what you were talking about, like when you live where you have things and you have like, you seem to be like happy and everything seems okay. But I mean, we see it all the time. People who seem like they have everything going for them, commit suicide or go into deep depression or attempt suicide or anything like that. Fairly routinely, unfortunately. And actually, like if you look at the data, the more affluent a culture is, the higher the instance of suicide in those. Not when you're more destitute, and like you said, there are a lot of times happier in places where you would think, oh my gosh, you can barely rub two nickels together or, find a meal, clothing, shoes, or anything like that. And you seem happier than the kids that are going to, $15,000 a year private schools, And so for me, one instance that really kind of drove this home for me was the day before my birthday in 2008. I don't remember exactly why, but I kind of had closed in on myself. I was feeling like underappreciated, and just kind of like the fact that my birthday was there. And I've had a thing in the past where, like, when that time of year, when the days are longer, days are shorter, there's more darkness, more dimness and everything, lack of sunlight, all these other sorts of things that don't foster very, very much happiness to begin with. But I just like went AWOL, like, wife and 2 kids at the time. My son was like about to be 2 years old, and I just disappeared for like the evening. And I came back and everything seemed okay. From like, I kind of like blew off my steam or whatever. And then I came back and I kind of tried to go through like, all right, let me try to play this off and not get in too much trouble and, all this sort of stuff. But I was still I was angry with my wife about some stuff, and like we were but what was crazy is I woke up the next morning, it's my birthday, and she has like gone out of her way to do like all this stuff for me. And it was like, oh my God, I feel like it's such an asshole, like I felt horrible. And so I still wasn't completely, like, I didn't feel like I deserved it. I felt like it was not something that, like, I felt like if anything, it made me feel almost worse. Like it was touching and everything, but it made me feel worse. And I had a friend, a guy that I work with, that his wife had just left him. And it was like their 1 year, they hadn't even gotten to their 1 year anniversary yet. And she'd like been cheating on him and stuff. And then she like ran off with another guy or whatever. And so his birthday was like a week after mine. And so when I went out to work that week, I was just like, hey man, look, here's what's going to happen. I was like, we're going to go rent a movie. I'm going to come over to your house and we're going to buy a couple of 6-packs. We're just going to hang out. We're going to just do, I'm going to be here for you. And what was crazy is I felt better doing that than I ever felt when I was being selfish. And even when my wife showered me with gifts the morning of my birthday, after I had done what I did to her, treated her like crap, I felt better. And so I feel like, that whole thing of, man cannot find himself except in a sincere gift of himself. Like it's a I don't know. It's an emptiness or a void that we have that can only be filled by generosity, not by trying to acquire more things. Because ultimately, we end up doing is we end up being slaves to the stuff that we own anyway. The things own us. We don't own them. So
no, and I think
sure.
that's well said.
And Aaron, you can notice, I have to point out, you and I have wonderful wives. So does Chad. Chad,
no doubt.
Yeah.
Right on, man.
I definitely married
and and Chad is basically married like your high school sweetheart, more or less, right?
We didn't know each other. We didn't know each other until college. And so, but yeah, like we met when
college sweetheart.
Yeah, we met when we were 18 and we became best friends like instantly. And within 3 months we were dating, and that was it. That's all she wrote. Like we knew we wanted to be married when we were 18 years old. And that was, 28 years ago now. And we've been married for 23. So yeah.
Right on.
And so another thing too, Aaron, just to kind of give you a little bit of background, though I'm weird, Chad's a Catholic. He finds a deep love of Jesus Christ himself. And it's one of the things that I appreciate about him in particular is that Chad and I basically come together and find both spirituality and freedom without judgment. And it's a very similar relationship to what you and I have, in that we find the similarities to be much more rewarding than the differences. So one of the things
I don't necessarily, like, it wouldn't hurt my feelings if Marcus just like what he was talking about with becoming a Seventh-Day Adventist possibly or whatever. If he came and said, hey man, I've been thinking about this and I think I want to become Catholic. It wouldn't hurt my feelings or anything like that. But I don't necessarily buy into this notion that we have this obligation to like beat people over the head with our own interpretation of our faith. That most of what I have come to believe in, just like if you have an alcoholic, you can't tell an alcoholic that they're an alcoholic and they need to stop drinking. They've got to figure it out for themselves. And everything else with you now, what you can do is you can be a good example. You can be, like I always equate it to like my iPhone, like I really like the stuff that it's capable of. And I try to tell people like, oh man, look, this is awesome. But I'm not going to shame somebody because they have an Android or they have a, Samsung, whatever. I don't care. Like whatever works for you. As long as you're happy, that's cool. But I like this. This is what I enjoy. So I think that's what makes what, because I think maybe I'm a weird Catholic too, because I have some stuff that like makes some of my Catholic family and friends not so thrilled, but I don't really care. I'm not trying to like hurt anybody or anything like that. Quite the opposite, actually. And I think that's what makes me and Marcus be able to coexist, not just coexist, but to actually like flourish together, is that neither one of us is trying to like fight with the other one or convince the other one that we're right. We're just like, we have 100% dedicated our focus to the things that we have in common, and in learning about the differences in a genuinely curious way, and benefiting from the differences that we have with each other, and then bringing guests on like yourself to learn even more. So
yeah, no, and I think that's a great thing, because, you know, kind of what I'm hearing you say, and I agree with, is that, you know, instead of allowing differences to be the definition and boundaries of what I have as relationships, I allow the relationship to be really what takes the primacy, in the sense that I see in other human beings a value that's there intrinsically because they're human. And I put on a value, a connection with them as something that I don't want to sever. If they choose to sever that, if they choose to build a wall, I have to respect or navigate that in a different way. But that to pursue a connection with somebody, looking for the things that would unite us, as opposed to finding the things, you know, that would, and defining things by what we differ in. And I think there's a value in that. You know, so many times as in church or in religion, sadly enough, it's happened where it's like, you know, here, we're going to tell you all these things that you have to be, and then you can be our buddy. And, you know, the idea is, you know, I'm going to be your buddy, whether you choose this or not. I just happen to, I'm going to show you with the way I live. If it's a recommendation to what you want, then great, you know. And, you know, you know, as a pastor, I'm not gonna deny the fact that I'm trying to encourage. I believe that this has a value in it. Hey, man, and that it is worthy, you know. But I, in the sense that I'm not gonna then, if you don't agree, say, okay, well, we can't be friends.
Yeah, well, that's kind of been the way that I've tried to describe like my relationship with God, and what I kind of think that like God's relationship with humanity is that it's an invitation, it's an open invitation, but it's not a forceful requirement. You know, God loves us so much, He won't even force us to be united with Him forever. He's just like, I really want you to be united with me forever. But if you don't want that, I'm not going to force it down your throat. Like you.
It's like a parent.
Yeah.
You know, it's God is the ultimate parent. You know, both left and right being male and female. But like some parents, they're over controlling, and then that's like you could kind of like align them with like religions in a sense, if you will. Like some parents, they're more lenient, they're more open about things, and then certainly just gotta by the cookie cutter, and it shows through the religions that they practice. So it's an interesting display on how people act, especially when it's their religion that is their overall personality, in a sense, if you get what I'm saying.
So Nico, this is Aaron. Aaron, this is Nico. Nico is our other co-host, and so I want to kind of go off of that tip of how we come together, because before we started this, I put this out to Aaron and mentioned it to Chad as well, that that one of the things that I think happens is that there are voluntarists who are looking for a Christian religion, and the Seventh-Day Adventist Church, it can be a way for them to find a religion or find a spirituality that works for them. If they find that they need that more traditional religious path, I think that is specifically because of what Aaron has talked about today, the way that they put their money where their mouth is. And that's what voluntarists do. We put our money where our mouth is. We can't rely on government because we don't believe in government. So we have to be the ones that go out and do the things that need to be done. And
And we're
one of the
constantly
things
answering
that-
these questions about like, well, if you don't want the government to do this, you hate people and you want to abandon them. And we're like, no, actually, like we are going out and doing this stuff voluntarily to try to help in the ways that we can,
people
so that we can
at-
render
at the
government
most.
obsolete. Yeah, and not
Sure,
have
you
to
help
just
people.
different levels of administrative fees and all that crap that the government does.
No, I think voluntarism is you're I mean, you break the word down, you volunteer yourself. So it's like you're the word volunteer. I'm going out helping people. How are you guys to change the word and say I don't like people? No, I'm volunteering so that therefore we don't have to rely on a certain source. You know, once Walmart go bye-bye, where y'all getting food? So it's like
right?
we had that one person who volunteers. I mean, it's not one, but we have those people who volunteer and are able to consistently provide you food, not tax you on it because it's free. It comes from the ground. So it's like, it's just the proper climate and everything along the lines of that manner. But in a general sense, it's like, don't misconstrue the word. Don't add a negative connotation on something that you see that and it's like the media. What they do is they change your perspective on it. They make you view it in a light that isn't necessarily appreciated.
For sure. And one of the things that Christianity has in common with anarchists, with voluntarists, is the media likes to demonize absolutely everything a Christian does. It's as if no Christian did anything good for, ever, but one Christian, one guy messes up, does something stupid, and bam, all these Christians being dumb, doing craziness. They come after us all the time. This week, they're talking about that with this COVID nonsense that they've been doing, they're not going to let people, and Chad saw it on Twitter where I posted it, but they're not going to let people have Christmas. I'm like,
Yeah.
they shut down your churches. Are you going to draw the line anywhere? And one of the things that I said, and I really mean this, is it is time for people to start being Christ-like, to start drawing a line and saying, no, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to have a relationship with my God, and there is not going to be a separation, whether it is government or somebody else. I have a relationship with my God, and you're not going to stand in the way. One of the images I absolutely love about Jesus, because I may not call myself a Christian, but the bottom line is I like Jesus.
You're Christian friendly. You're Christ friendly. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm Christian
You got
friendly.
to. You got to.
The ones that live
Yeah.
like Jesus anyway, right?
Right.
Right. Right. That's exactly right. When
Try to be friendly
the
to all
money
of them so
changers-
that they can start being that way. It's
for sure.
Maybe we got to start
So
bringing
what-
gift baskets.
for sure. But one of the things that I see, particularly in Aaron, and he's not going to like that I'm going to say this, but I particularly see this in Aaron, but I also see it in many of the other people that are in my family that are Seventh-Day Adventists, such as his dad, such as frankly, most of Amber's family. I'm really blessed to have married well, but they tend to be more Christ-like. And they tend to be more the giving sort. And Aaron, I really want to kind of put this back to you. Why do you think that, because I have a limited experience with the Seventh-Day Adventist Church because of the family experience, but I have experienced it outside of the family. I have seen that Christ-like glow about Seventh-Day Adventists. Why do you think that particularly my experience has led me to believe that?
I'm thankful. I'm humbled, right? You're right. That's, in the sense that, in the sense of, I really feel like the pathway of humanity is trying to keep yourself in the right balance. And whenever you start to feel too good about yourself, you're kind of out of that balance. So what I mean by that is not in a, self-deprecating sort of way. I mean, in a humble sort of way, right? And so, why that would be, the hope would be is that the people you've encountered are really, truly genuine. And so, just to share with you, my life has been transformed because of my belief in Jesus Christ. All right. So, my story. I was throwing life away, basically. I was a drug addict and, was under the conviction that I was going to live as hard and fast as I could with no boundaries, no barriers, no need for anybody or desire for anybody. And I was miserable. I had no purpose. And the more I tried to live for me, the worse I felt. And, I wake up now with, like, from my religious perspective, a clean slate every day, with an understanding that my path to truest happiness is by putting other people above myself. And that makes me a better dad. That makes me a safe husband. That makes me somebody who's worthy to be a friend to somebody, because it's a dangerous thing to be looking out for yourself and call yourself a friend to anybody, because you're not really a friend if at some point I'm more important than you, right? And the reality is that, if my faith is real and I really say that I believe in Jesus and that, so I'm talking now from a Christian perspective, right? From a biblical Christian's perspective, and that is that God himself, the ruler of the universe, saw value in a human life to the level that he would rather give his up than to just be like, oh, that didn't matter. And if I really believe in that God, then that should translate into how I treat people. And that doesn't, it's not, I'm not going to treat them that way because they do all these things. That's manipulation. That's not real love. And I'm not really connected to the real God if I'm trying to manipulate people for my own gain. And so, there's Christians, and we all slip into that in different times because we're selfish. You know what I mean? We go through periods where we're selfish, we get distracted, whatever the case may be. And there's times where I put my own interests above my children, above my wife. And, I feel worse about it. But the hope would be it's that you've encountered people that are trying, even though they're imperfect, to live that philosophy. And, there's people in every single group that has a profession of belief that are more true to that belief than not. And so, there's people in Seventh-Day Adventism that you would find that sadly probably would give you a bad taste in your mouth of not just that group of people, but of God and the things that they say they believe in. But that's true. I think that's a human problem in every group of people that say they believe things, so.
Well, that's why it's important to not put too much, don't hang your coat on a hook that can't bear the weight, like trying to put that kind of faith in a person. And to think that, well, if this person, you read that book and you act like this, oh, well, then that book must be trash. It's like, well, that's even worse than judging a book by its cover. Judging a book by its readers, gee whiz, man, where are we? And so sometimes I think that that kind of gets in the way of our ability to, and it's human nature too, to like take our own insecurity into some of those things where we're either afraid, and so we find it's an easy trigger, it's an easy scapegoat, an easy out for us to say, that person did something, so I'm going to just discard and discount everybody who thinks like them.
It's the perception that's left on it. So, like, for example, my grandmother is a Seventh-Day Adventist. Been growing up in like Christ like household, since I can remember. But one thing, my grandmother left like a bad taste in my mouth, like for Christianity in the sense of Seventh-Day Adventism, because we'd go to, and we're Haitian, so that I don't know if that adds anything to it, but man, we'd be in church sun up, sundown, and we'd start from like like 10 in the morning and wouldn't leave there until like 5. And it was an experience, but the thing is, it's like my grandmother's super strict, cookie cutter, like there's no breaking her out of these habits, but she's the most giving person. Like she still gives to Haiti consistently. Like family were called the Untouchables. My grandmother brought a boatload of people over from Haiti to the Americas, and she just keeps sharing and giving and giving. And I'm like, wow, you're so sharing and giving, but I just can't find that in me. Not necessarily sharing and giving part, but the Christ-like nature from it, and always trying to give and give and give. My grandmother, if she could and wanted to, she'd give this house away to a whole bunch of people if she could. But leaving the bad taste, like after like me going out and like me experiencing the whole world, I just look back at the book and like the people who read the book. So it's the perspective that I was left with. It's the perspective that's left with you. And it's like everybody likes to judge it. So since I have a belief in something that's not tangible and try and push this on you in a certain way and you dislike it, you're going to damn that person and the book. So I believe that I honestly believe that it's the perception of the person and how they're giving it to another person to digest it. Because if I just told you, yeah, there's this man and this guy and he does everything for you and you have to do this, and this, it gets, it's not something that feels natural, It's not, you gotta have it be natural to somebody for them to really like it. It's like kids going to school. Some kids will sit their asses down and do all their work. Other kids, they're like, why am I right here?
Yeah.
We judged every idea by the character of the idea holders. There would be no ideas worth subscribing to.
Right.
Because
right.
everybody fails, everybody makes mistakes, and trying to say like, oh, well, so-and-so did something wrong. So therefore, I remember there was one time my mom and dad got into an argument about something. And my dad was like reading in this meditation book. And he was like, later that day, he's like, oh, listen to this. And she was like, well, if that's the book you were reading before you said whatever you said to me this morning, I don't want to hear it. I was like, what the hell is that? Like, that's terrible. Like, that's terrible logic. You were mean. You were mean. And now you're trying to like meditate and get better. But because I'm still butthurt about what you were mean about, I'm going to discount the thing you're reading from. Like it's not a good thing.
I think that happens a lot, particularly in any religion, whether you're talking about Christianity, Buddhism, because we just happen to be in a nation that the predominant religion is Christianity. If you're talking about in Islam, or you're talking with a Middle Eastern country, or you're talking about in India with Hinduism, those same people are going to have very similar reactions. People are going to see that and want to react against it, going to move the other direction, and you're going to have that. And I think that a lot of people just get mad, just angry at God because, their life's not been good. They wanted to be a multimillionaire by the time they were 25, and they're not a multimillionaire. So
or they are a multimillionaire and they realize they're still not happy.
Right.
I mean, seriously, like a lot of times, some of this stuff comes from like what we were talking about, what Aaron was saying at the very beginning. Like sometimes you go to these people, I've seen it. I've seen people in wheelchairs, paralyzed from the waist down, and they had like an outstanding athletic career up until like their sophomore year in high school, and they got in a car wreck, and they are out like they smile from ear to ear, hugging everybody and all this kind of stuff. And then you've got like the guy who actually is like the star athlete in his senior year who's miserable all the time because he's got all these expectations heaped on him and he's having trouble living up to it. It's very, I think a lot of times what we carry around with us can be the biggest obstacle to us, to our generosity, and to the things that we need to be focused on.
It's that mirror. It's that mirror you don't focus on. That mirror most definitely tells you all your demons. And some people just, I see you later. They don't face it. People their demons, and it's like it's the comfortability level that people have with themselves, that is, not with other people, because they could be driven into a corner, but like with themselves, a lot of people don't want to face it, and that's what a big barrier is. And it's another thing, it's like if you don't like something about somebody, it's probably because you don't like it about yourself. Like I said, the mirror that you're looking at. So a lot of people don't take the time to like really analyze what they need to fix, and they do analyze it and they're like, comfortability is really okay with stab me in the back right now, so I'm gonna just be cool with this blade in my back. And nobody just says, maybe you shouldn't get stabbed. Like, maybe I should take care of this.
You know, I like what you're saying, because, you know, the thing that I have a burden for, I'm just sharing this from my perspective, right?
Yeah.
Is that religion is a practical thing. You know, I have little value for a religion that stays in a theory mode only, because I can have a theory that I'm a Christian and go out and treat somebody like I'm a demon, right? And that's why it has to become a practical thing. And what you were saying, I've found so true, because we want to have this balance, because, you know, this balance is that if I look in the mirror too long, that's the best recipe to be discouraged and, you know, to become a victim and to be stuck in life, right? If I look in the mirror too long. But I also don't want to look in the mirror on the other side of the coin where, like, I'm the best thing that's ever happened and my world then becomes all about me. So there's this healthy balance of being able to confront and be true, right, with what I see and adapt the things that maybe need polished, but not to stay there so long that I become a victim where then everybody owes me something, right? And, you know, I liked what you were saying, because it's like, you know, that mirror, that balancing of it really is, you know, a key to, I think, really being the kind of person that's just real. And I think all of us really, in the context of relationship, you want to find a person who's real. And a person who's real is somebody that you can develop a relationship with. And it's not easy, and I would say probably not possible, to develop a relationship with someone who isn't real, because what you're developing is also not real.
For sure.
Based on false pretenses,
Yeah, exactly. And that's the, you know, again, this comes back to, I really like that movie. And I just mentioned this. I was interviewed earlier this week by, I was interviewed earlier this week by Chris Rice.
Rich Mullins movie you talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I want to see it. I haven't seen it, but I want to see that.
It's very good, and I really like that. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not. What I'm talking about, Aaron, is in the Rich Mullins movie, and I may have mentioned it to you. It's called Ragamuffin. Rich Mullins talks about that his philosophy, it's called Ragamuffin. And he talks about that there are two kinds of Christians. And Rich Mullins is a famous Christian singer. And he talks about there's two kinds of Christians. There's the kinds that are sure. They just know that Jesus just, okay, it's Tuesday, it's time for you to come, Susie. Let's go. Now, I shouldn't have chosen Susie as my mother-in-law's name, but it's time for you. It's time for you.
Is it his mother-in-law's name?
Yeah, she's great. She's great. So I chose that. But you know, it's time for you to come, and she's like, okay, I'm ready, and she goes, because there's that kind of Christian that are certain that they're doing the right thing, that they're being the right kind of person. But then there's those Christians that aren't sure and are just barely making it by the skin of their teeth, and are counting on the grace of God to get them over that hump. And I think that one of the things that he's onto in that movie is that I think the vast majority of people, no matter what the religion, the vast majority of people are actually that second group. Yes. And I would say that the people that are in that first group might be deluding themselves a little bit. And, you know, but, you know, for me, you know, maybe God will judge me poorly. I don't know. But the one thing that cannot be said about me personally, and again, skin of my teeth, I'm hanging on to the ledge, I get it, but I love God with all of my heart. There is not a single piece of me that does not adore everything that God is, and I just may have a different understanding of what that God is. And so for me, I think that when we look into that mirror and we find ourselves wanting, and we aren't quite there, that's a reality that we need to face. And that's when we turn to God. That's when we look to God and say, okay, please give me that next step so that I can make it to the next thing that you need me to do. Because ultimately, I believe that we are here to do God's work. Now, you can call it whatever it is. And, you know, I don't know for sure what God plans for me in my life and where he's got plans, but I do think he has them. And one of the things that I want to kind of touch on, and I actually do want to get more into what happened in Rwanda with you.
Yeah, I was about to say I want to do that too. Yeah.
But I do want to say I've shared with you my convictions as it relates to anarchy and as it relates to voluntarism or libertarianism, whatever you want to call it. I want to know what your perspective is on seeing not only what I've introduced, because I've definitely, I gave you Adam's book. I've talked with you at length multiple times. I kind of want to hear what your perspective and how you kind of see us when looking at it from a Christian point of view.
No, I appreciate you asking that. I see a lot of common ground in the concept of morality and really the idea of authority. And what do I mean by that? And I think the servant method of authority that Jesus demonstrated is what you guys are picking up on when you're talking about people being volunteers to do these kinds of things. So, I see that there's a lot of room to have growth in that. My personal perspective as a pastor is I don't try to be political. I'm trying to reach people in a context where I can have a way to connect with as many people as possible. And so I would share with you my personal opinions on certain things, but really, to be honest with you, I go through the modality of authority in the way that I've understood it in the Bible isn't about people having power over other people. God, in the greatest sense, when he says, look, if you're not like the other people who try and lord authority over people, if you're really great, then show everybody by serving them. And, and that's the context that I see that there's, that Christianity does. Now, in the context of what I see in biblical faith is that there are cases where everything in this world, and I'm talking from a biblical Christian perspective. So I recognize that there's people that don't agree with what I'm saying. So I understand that. I'm just sharing with you my perspective, right? And that is that, God has allowed people, because if he's in charge of everything, he's not unaware of people that are misusing authority, people that are doing things wrong, people that are indeed corrupt in the way that their governance or authority has been given to them by way of however that happened, right? And so we see all through the Bible records of people being faithful to that trust and unfaithful to that trust. And God having to step in and bring a balance to that at different times and through different means and different ways. And so, just to share prophetically, I believe that, that the challenge comes whenever we start to see this merging of government authority and religious authority. And prophetically speaking, our nation is headed there. And I know that, we've talked about that a little bit. I'm just telling you from what I read in the prophecies of the Bible that it's heading that way. And historically, we see what happens when that takes place. And it's not a good thing. It's a bad thing, right? And so, I don't know if that answered specifically some of the questions you were asking me in relation to what you just said, but hopefully that kind of got to the target a little bit of what you were asking me.
Right on.
Can I ask a follow-up question to that?
Yeah.
Because when you were describing that, what I kind of sensed was a concept of like true leadership, like leadership through service and through attraction, not through forcefulness and dictate and threats or any of that kind of stuff. And so what I wanted to ask you is, do you think, because one of the things that comes up a lot of times in this type of conversation, especially in like political circles, even amongst libertarians, anarchists, and everything, is, look, people are just too stupid. They don't want to take their own personal responsibility, and so people are sheep, and they need like a brutal master to basically rule over them so that they'll not tend towards self-destruction. And so you end up with some of this like weird, people almost apologizing for like this is kind of what the hell do you expect? Look at how stupid people are. And so what do you see? Like, what can we do as like a solution to that problem of, we're seeing it right now. This whole year, we've seen how easily manipulated people are, and how people have turned into snitches on each other, and people are the ability of people to exercise their free will has taken a back seat to you must want to kill everyone because you aren't doing some arbitrary thing the government said you should do. So what is it possible, number one, to remedy that situation, and how do you think it is? What do you think is the best route to kind of waking people up on an individual scale, but in large numbers?
And so this is my pastor hat, because this is what I believe, right?
Yeah.
So I believe the problem is a moral problem.
Okay.
And you are never going to fix the problem of sin with legislation. And the reality is that, the transformation that comes in a person's life, when one of the gifts of the Holy Spirit, the Bible promises self-control, right? And so, does there need to be an intervention when my choices are hurting someone else and creating problems for someone else? I do believe there needs to be interventions, especially for people who, we're not survival of the fittest, right? So those two ideas do not go together as far as, if I'm truly a servant leader, survival of the fittest, the idea of just let the strong work it out, the weak will get weeded out, that doesn't have any place in the concept of Christianity. And so, what the world needs is Jesus. And what the solution is Jesus. I understand that people don't necessarily agree with me, but what I mean is that a higher power that would motivate me towards a moral direction that's not within myself, right? And so you find AA programs and all of these things that are really addressing the issue that corrodes society, that corrodes the family. And the family is the building block of society. And if we want the society to get stronger, we have to promote and stop tearing down the roles of happiness that come from the basic connection that people have in the most elemental learning zone of human life, right. And that is the family, right? And so you've seen it for years. We all have, through the comedies and the sitcoms, the destruction of that nucleus unit, and how it's like, it's not a valuable thing to have family connection. It's made fun of in different ways. And really the identity that we have, where we learn how to put others above ourselves, and where we have the people that are the safest to tell us what our problems are, if it's the right balance, is in the family. And families make up the whole. And so, I'm really sharing with you something that I believe ideally is possible, that people would be captured by this idea that the greatest attraction, the greatest motivator, the greatest sense of purpose, the most powerful thing is love, right? And so when you live a life of love, that's the greatest controlling force and the greatest motivator there is. And love awakens love. You cannot legislate love. You can experience it, you can share it, but you can't make people love. And we see that's why God, and what you were saying earlier, that's why God doesn't say, all right, I love you, so you better follow me. He gives you the choice to be like, no, I'm done with you. Because you can't legislate love. Now, you can command love. You can demonstrate love. You can recommend love. I mean, God commands love, but he doesn't make you love, right? There's a difference. And so the question then, how do we do it? How do we do it? Woo! We live it, because it's contagious and you infect people with it. And if they get
selfish people,
how about selfish people?
What about the people who are selfish with their love? If not selfish, they feel as if they're self-righteous through their love.
I got you. Well, then I would have to say that they don't really have love, first of all. And I think the reality is people are smarter than we give them credit for. So I don't ever think there's this context where it's like, oh, you're just too dumb. You need me to tell you how to figure out life. No. If it's like, hey, I'm your friend. I've been down this path
Right.
before. Let me give you some pointers. That's
Right.
a different thing. And if you choose
Right.
them, great. If you don't, hey, I broke my ankle in that hole. Hope yours heals too. Right.
Mhm.
So, but you know, what do you do with those people? You know, that's the part where Christianity's shoes really get put on and meet the rubber meets the road, because Jesus says you let them take advantage of you, because the only way you're going to win is by really loving them. And so that means that there's times where, you know, we have this statement that's like, you know, you guys have probably heard it. What is it? Fool me once.
Shame on you.
Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me.
Shame on me.
Shame on me. There's an element that we can't, you know,
or if George Bush is saying it, it's fool me again, and you fool me again.
I won't get fooled again.
But I think that's when my love is really put to the test, when I'm willing to be vulnerable, even if it costs me, right? Mm-hmm. And so, you know, that's a radical way to fight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because it's the way that is contrary to the way the world has gone, you know, throughout all of history.
So how would you lead? Where would your step be in leading? I know that you're a pastor and you work with people, but say, like, would you do it in your sermons, or would you do it outside of church? Where would be your best way to get the gravitation and get the snow on the snowball for it to really pick up for that hill?
Pick up. You know, that's a good question. So I can share with you in the context of the sphere of influence that I've been given, right? Which is a church full of people connected to a couple of schools. So how I do that is by being attached and connected. I believe that experience is, so, you know, what do I mean by that? People being encouraged to try something out and experience it begets that desire in them. So we do things. And there's many times where I've pushed and been a part of a small team that runs the infrastructure to create an experience for people in the hopes that they'll show up and try it so that they get excited about it. So yeah, I do it through sermons, but I'm a firm believer in that, you know, the best way, you know, relationship is where it's at. And I'm sharing with you my philosophy. Relationship's where it's at. We right now on this discussion have an interaction that's brought us closer because we've spent this time together. We've learned about each other. We've talked about things that we're all passionate about. And in our memories now is this experience and all of the reward that comes from it. And the reality is that anytime Mark or anybody else would say, hey, you want to get on Zoom and do you want to talk? That experience is gonna promote that again. And so as a pastor, I always try and get people involved up off the couch, out of theory and into practice in the little ways that move to the bigger ways. Because eventually that teenage kid that showed up to run a camera and overheard you talking about something that changed their life, that went overseas and helped you build a school, that went downtown and helped you give out food, pretty soon they've got skin in the game. They're giving their money. They're giving their time. They're leading. Right. They're leading something because it's captured them as a person. And, you know, the Bible term for that is discipleship. That's the way Jesus decided to change the world. He invested himself in 12 people, and it was powerful. So my answer to that, and you know, I know it's a lot of theory, but the real rubber meets the road practicality is invest yourself and your beliefs in somebody else. And that person, if they catch that spirit, will invest themselves and their beliefs in someone else. And that's the way God designed that this idea of love would spread, because it becomes exponential. And, you know, you've all heard that. If you were to take like a little piece of paper, man, this is so cool. If I were to take this little piece of paper and I were to keep folding it over on itself, the number of times that I would, theoretically, if I could keep doing that over and over, it doubles. I would only have to fold that thing about 40 times, and the stack would be so high it would reach to the moon. And if I folded it one more time, it would come all the way back. And that's exponential, right? So when I invest myself in one, who invests themselves in one, who invests themselves in one, and that keeps going, you know, that's the radical idea that God put out in the Bible of how it happens. And so I'm sorry, I got wound up. You'll have to forgive me.
That's awesome.
But I believe that's how to do it.
Man.
It reminds me of that story of the little girl on the beach with the starfish, you know, and they're like, "Yeah, you could never make a difference." She's like, "I made a difference to that one." She's throwing the starfish back into the ocean so that they don't die on the beach. And they're like, oh, there's millions of them. You'll never make a difference. She's like, made a difference to that one.
Yeah.
It's just one. It just takes one. It just takes we are a cog. We are a machine. We the human race and everything on this planet is a big old machine. It's a big old cog, and we all are complementary to each other. We also make up for each other's weaknesses. So we are able to make sure we pick up the slack for other people. And if it's not the slack for other people, they're picking it up for you. Everything is give and take, and everything is a take and give. So it's a matter of time for because if you notice it, look into social media right now. Social media is the ultimate bandwagon to hop on or off. You either choose one side or the other, and then you have the people who observe it. So from the observing factor, it's like somebody says something wrong, and then 30 other people jump on. And then there's those every other few that try and help out that person that says something wrong, and then they get jumped. So it's always big old chain reaction. So if you were to change the narrative, it's contagious. We are a contagious set of people. Whatever we can put in implementation to further, we can do it. It all depends on the mindset of it.
Yeah. Well, what you said about relationship is really, really important too, in that I've only known known Aaron for this short, roughly an hour that we've been on, but I know now that we've had this conversation, he could tell me something now that I may not want to hear, but I'm going to listen because I know that where he's coming from is a place of genuine respect, and maybe he's trying to shed some light on something for me, instead of I've gotten no impression from him whatsoever the whole time we've been talking that he wants to impose his will on me or that he wants to shame me into something or anything like that. So if he came at me and said, hey, about this, I think this would be a better approach to whatever it is, I'm going to be more receptive to it. And so I think a lot of times that's where some of this stuff, these big issues, whether it's the questions of morality that people have been trying to legislate for decades, and that some of that stuff is being undone or redone depending on what state you're in or where it is. I think it does so much more damage to the cause that you're actually even trying to accomplish, because it doesn't matter if you tell someone, hey, water is good for you, so you better drink this, otherwise I'm going to throw you in a cage. There are going to be a lot of people who are just going to be like, screw water, I'm never drinking water again, even though you can't live without water.
Water is good for you, so I'm going to tie you up and I'm going to force this hose in your mouth, and I'm going to pour 64 ounces in, because that's how much
all at one time. Exactly, all at one time. Right.
So I want to go ahead and wrap up this first section. There's a couple of things I want to wrap up with. The first one is what Aaron's talking about. We've actually been talking about, again, this is great minds think alike. We've been talking about with this podcast for some time, and that is the solution if the state continues to bring that boot that we are worried that they're going to bring. The solution isn't to go out with a gun and try to fight them. That, number one, would be a losing battle. And number two, you would be using the weapons they use against them, and they're better at it than we are. So the solution is, one way or another, to place that flower within the gun, to say to them, we know a better way. We know that we are based in love, compassion, joy, and happiness, and present that to them as a solution. As voluntarists and as anarchists, it is time for us to stop being angry, to put the anger at the state aside, and start being the smiling, loving, ethical, moral face that we really are.
The alternative, yeah.
Correct. Because the one thing that I wanted to comment, and this came from earlier, I have, watching the world and knowing the Bible relatively well, and I said this earlier this week as well, I had hoped that when they wrote Revelations, that was some crazy dude just mouthing off some BS. I had prayed and hoped that was the case. And these fools are going ahead and trying to make that stuff come true. And so we need to come together. We need to be ready as allies, whether you're a Christian or a Buddhist or a voluntarist or an anarchist or a conservative or a liberal who respects freedom. We need to come together. It is about unity, because we are like the ants in Bug's Life. There are a bunch of us, and there's a lot more of us than there are those evil, mean grasshoppers who just want to control us, take our food, and kill our kids. So
I was so happy until you said that.
I know.
Beautiful note. Beautiful note.
Yeah. So this has been Aquarian Anarchy. I suggest that if you'd like to hear Aaron's stories about Rwanda and the genocide that he experienced, that you subscribe to our Patreon channel for just $5 a month. You get access to our second show, Anarchy After Hour. And when I say you got access, there's a lot of material there. We release one episode of this show a week. We also release one episode of that show a week. And we also release written material. And if you decide to be a $20 member, you can sit here with us and talk to us. You also, at all points, get access to our Telegram channel for just $5 a month, which gives you access to each of us. Share your opinions. Be an influence on what Aquarian Anarchy is, because we are growing, and we are growing quickly. We have lots of friends, and we are building bridges to a bunch of different people, because it's time for us to unite in freedom. That being said, stay free, my friends, and we'll see you in the after hour.
Like the episode, share the episode, and subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. Don't forget
if y'all like us,
hit the little bell so you get the notifications.
Bell.
Right, hit the notification bell
for sure.
So you can get the whenever.
And buy stuff. Go to the store.
We got some really dope shirts. We have some really dope shirts.
No doubt.
Cool.
No doubt.